So I tell people, if you're not sure exactly how much of each one, some people need a little bit more of one than another, but aim for middle. Make sure every meal has something carb, something protein, and something fat.
Hi, welcome to the Judy Terrell Show, where I explore topics intended to optimize every body 50, 60, 70, and above.
Hi everybody, are you completely confused and frustrated over the information overload that you are receiving about how to lose weight? Because if you are, then you are exactly like most of the clients that I have worked with for the last 4 decades, and in the last 5 years I've observed this kind of growing anxiety and confusion and frustration that's undermining people about what to eat and how to lose weight. So I'm going to throw my ring in the hat here, because I've been doing weight loss and health coaching for 4 decades. I'm 63 years old myself, and there are certain principles that I subscribe and give to everybody. There's a little bit of tweaking that might happen when you're over 60 in a male, or post-menopause in a female, but generally speaking, these guidelines follow for the lifespan because they are inherently congruent with the nature of this vehicle of which we are living. All right, so there are 5 main ones that I'm going to talk about in this video, and the first one is, drum roll, you've got to eat whole foods. This has gotten very, very confusing in the last 5 years from what I've observed. And so I have clients that are coming in, they're like, I don't eat any ultra processed foods, I don't eat anything bad for me, and yet I can't lose weight. And then when I ask them to tell me what they're eating, they will basically tell me that they've had a protein shake for breakfast, they had a protein bar for lunch, they had another protein bar, or another type of bar, quick convenient food for a snack, and now like 2/3 of the day is over and they have not had one bite of a whole food. All right? And in their mind, though, they're doing something very right for themselves, because we're drinking the Kool-Aid, we're buying the snakeskin oil. But if you look at the cultures around the globe that live the longest, they're not eating any of these ultra-processed foods. And if you do the research on America, we are spending the most money on health and well-being, and we are one of the top 3 unhealthiest nations on the planet, with obesity being one of the critical factors. All right, so let me just explain to you. Here's what you need to know about what you should be eating. If you can't grow it, pick it, catch it, or kill it, then you shouldn't be eating it. If it is not in the state that you could get out in the wild, if you were, shipwrecked on an island, you could find potatoes and dig them up out of the ground. You could kill a chicken and cook it. Like, where is the whey protein isolate protein powder river? Okay? It's nowhere, because it is an ultra processed food. And so, a couple things about ultra processed foods. One, they go through your system very quickly because they're pre-digested, basically. And that is one of the main things that the GLP-1 drugs is reversing. The GLP-1 drugs make the food sit in your system longer. So why, if someone's trying to lose weight, would you want to eat a food that's going to go through your system so fast? All right, that's point number 1 on my argument about eating whole foods versus these ultra-processed healthy foods. The second one, and this is compelling, you watch the influencers, and there's a lot of them out there, big ones, main ones, that are advocating protein powders and collagen powders and recipes with protein powders in things to make basically what I call a dessert, a meal. But here's the thing that they're not aware of, maybe, or not relaying to you. If they turn sideways, a lot of these influencers have this distended belly, okay? Because the microbiome of your colon does not like these ultra-processed proteins, all right? And it's creating a dysbiosis, and then, distension, like that, swollen gut, 5 months pregnant when you're not, 10 months pregnant, all right? So there's a piece in the literature and the science, when you're following the science about that I'm not seeing any of the influencers talk about. But again, like I said, I'll watch them on social media and they turn sideways and I'm like, what's up with that, right? And I learned that the hard way in my 30s, and I will not repeat that. I'm a whole food advocate And of course, you're never going to be able to eat 100% whole food. But if you're trying to make your, choices of food come from as closest to whole, minimally processed as possible, then you're going to be on the road towards better weight management and weight loss. All right, so that's my number one point. All right, number two, timing of your eating. All right. Timing of your eating. Most people who are trying to lose weight are doing under the guise of time restricted eating or intermittent fasting, or I'm not hungry in the morning, or I'm too busy at work and I can't have the time to eat, or I'm not hungry, or I don't want to fill my stomach. Any number of things I hear all the time. And these people are eating 20 to 30% of their calories by 4 p.m. and then 70 to 80% of their calories after that, and then between the hours of 4 and when they go to bed. And that is an equation for weight gain. When you have tried all the programs and done all the right things, and yet you still can't lose the weight that you're trying to lose, and you're a male or female over 50, now is the time for you to look into my program, Your Second 50.life. It includes online video support. You can download video and PDFs for eating plan and exercise plan appropriate for over 50. It includes group support on a monthly basis, and perhaps even more importantly, it includes weekly individualized coaching specific to you. Having the generalized plan is a good thing. I have helped literally thousands of people to lose weight over the 43 years I've been in practice, and I'd like to help you too. Especially if you are over 50, postmenopausal female, or over 60 as a male. It also is not good if you're young, but you have a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to insulin resistance. But if you're 50 plus, male or female, that eating pattern, even if you stick to, portions of things that are, proper for the day, I'm going to get to that in a second, because of the timing of it, you're messing up your melatonin and cortisol circadian rhythm. You're messing up your ghrelin and leptin circadian rhythm and other hormones that are now affecting sleep. You're supposed to be assimilating overnight, not digesting. And when you're eating on that time frame, your body thinks there's a crisis going on. It gets confused, and then it will hold on to body fat because it thinks that there's a crisis of some sort. So my second point is eat with the light, okay? And not literally, but you want to eat 70 to 80% of your calories before the hour of 5 p.m. and then the remaining after, between 5 and maybe 7 the latest. So eat with the daylight. The research is showing intermittent fasting can work, time-restricted eating can work if it's timed correctly, and most people are not timing it correctly. All right, so eat with the daylight. And the point I want to make on that last point is that even on the right calorie amounts for a deficit, you can be in a deficit but eating in the wrong time and not see the fat loss. That's the current science. Very interesting. All right, that's point number 2. All right, point number 3, macronutrients, okay? Carbs, protein, and fat. Well, first of all, we don't eat carb, protein, and fat. We eat food, and they're usually a mix. But most foods are, when they're whole food, typically higher in one versus another. The main mistake that many people are trying to lose weight are making is they're cutting out or significantly decreasing one of those macronutrients under the desire of desperately trying to lose weight. But my metaphor that I explain to my clients is if you're building a house, you need nails, you need wood, and you need sheetrock or drywall, right? You can't say to the workers, you know what? I don't want you to use that much wood, just a little tiny bit today. Use mostly the nails and the drywall. Because nails and drywall do something different than wood. Wood does something different than the nails. Nails does something different than the drywall. That is a metaphor for the macronutrients in your body. Protein does things that we need our body to do, but so do carbohydrates. And carbohydrates do things that fat doesn't do. And we need fat for certain operations and rebuilding of certain body parts. Hormones are made mostly from fat. Carbs, most of the fiber we get for the health of our colon comes from the carbohydrates. You don't want to cut out any of those macronutrients. And I have client after client that come into me that have been trying to do that and resulting in failure, right? For weight loss and then health and GI health and brain health and anti-aging and longevity. So you need all 3. So I tell people, if you're not sure exactly how much of each one, some people need a little bit of more of one than another, but aim for middle. Make sure every meal has something carb, something protein, and something fat. Because now you're feeding your body the raw material it needs to rebuild and create the chemistry that it needs to operate. You got to think beyond calories and body fat, and you've got to think into stand back at a bigger picture, the panoramic view of the materials that your body is using to optimize itself, to heal itself, to stop cancer cells from metastasizing. This is a health issue, and 3 macronutrients are what our bodies need. So if you're cutting out one, significantly, that's a red flag right there. All right, so that's point number 3. All right, my point number 4, diversification. All the current research, which is growing in number, on the health of our digestive system and how that is now linked to our immune system and our brain health and our weight management, not to mention our GI health, the attention is coming towards diversification. And so I have many, many clients that are very smart and have following the science and the information that's out, and they are doing what I call mono eating. So they have learned that, dark green vegetables are really good for them. So they're eating tons of green vegetables, and they're eating the same ones over and over again. And then they are deficient in white vegetables, mushrooms or cauliflower, or, purple ones like eggplant and purple cabbage. And each different really deep natural color in our produce represents different phytonutrients and different fibers and different vitamins and minerals. And so you might be feeding yourself tons of the ones that come from dark green leafy greens and starving the microbiome, the bacteria in your microbiome that need to feed off these other ones. So a lack of diversity results in a unhealthy digestive system, which can now thwart fat loss, amongst other things, but I'm concentrating on fat loss and weight here. So I have to teach clients how to rotate and mix in different colors so they're not eating the same things over and over and over again, because that is going to help them with their weight loss, not to mention their health and their GI tract and that whole, African baby, starving baby syndrome of that distended, digestive system. All right, so that's point number 4. And now my final one, point number 5. You'll hear throughout the internet all this information about calories. Calories don't matter. They're inaccurate. If you just eat healthy food, you'll lose weight. If you just follow the right macronutrients, you'll lose weight. Well, I'm here to tell you, when you follow the science, and I'm talking not about the one-out studies or the studies that involve 20 or 50 people or even a couple hundred. These studies I'm talking about are the ones that are, replicated over and over again, meta-analyzed, and have come up with the same conclusions, okay? Calories make a difference. You're not going to lose weight. No one loses weight unless they're at a calorie deficit. That's across the board. It's still at base a physics equation. Now, you can do things to mess that up and thwart that, physics equation, mess up your hormones, set your body into a crisis state so it's kind of becoming more metabolically efficient on less calories because it thinks you might be dying for some reason. One of them being too low of a calorie intake for an extended period of time. But point I'm making is you've got to figure out your calorie amount so that you're under what you're burning. But at the same time, you've got to know your resting metabolic rate, because you don't want to go below that. When you go below your resting metabolic rate, which is the calories you need just to sustain life, your heart beating, breathing, your brain functioning, you burn more than that in a day. You get up and you move around. You get your 5,000 to 10,000 steps in. Then you also do formal workouts maybe. You ride your bike, you take the Zumba class, you're doing Pilates. That's even more calories. And then there's a certain amount of calories to digest your food, which, if you're eating ultra-processed foods and these protein powders, you don't get very much calorie burn from that because it's pretty much goes right through your system, versus if you have to chew something. But that's, again, I covered that in the first point. So calories matter. Most women are going to lose weight between 1,300 and 1,500 calories because that's about their resting metabolism, and most men around 1,700 to 1,800 because you're burning more than that. but you don't want to go below your resting metabolic rate because your body thinks it's a crisis then and will do things for the long run you don't want it to do. So calorie deficit is absolutely necessary. I've watched a couple influencers of late flip-flop on that. They used to say calories don't matter, and now they're like, I'm changing my tune. Well, I've never changed my tune. I've been saying that because I have a metabolic machine I bought 30 years ago to measure people's resting metabolisms, and I've used that to successfully help people lose weight, like I said, for 4 decades. All right, 5 main points. Number 1 is whole foods as much as possible. Number 2 is timing. Eat most of your food before the hour of 5 p.m. and then the rest of it before the hours of 7 p.m. Number 3, carbs, protein, and fat. You need all 3 of them. All right, don't cut one out or really low on one, because down the road that will lead to a problem and it will thwart your weight loss, partly just by causing, binge eating or overeating, because now your body's going to demand you get those macronutrients. That's number 3. Number 4 is diversify, diversify, diversify. Do not eat the same things over and over again, even if they are healthy for you. Mix in other healthy ones. And then number 5 is calories matter, and you have to be at a deficit. All right, everybody. I hope that these are like light bulbs went off for you on a couple of these points, because if you're not successfully losing weight, these might be the key. And if you feel like you've gotten some information that's really, wow, no one else, I never put it like that, I didn't understand it, but the way you've described that makes sense to me, then you are the perfect person to join my group, my subscription platform, yoursecond50.life, because I have a whole curated online inventory of videos and PDFs talking about information that most people are, influencers are not. And we have 2 monthly group meetings so that you can interact. So check that out, everybody. And I will see you soon on another video.
If you'd like to have access to some of my additional resources, I can be found at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on my website, www.judyterrell.com.